So we have a big question today. Does the Bible contradict itself when, where Jesus met the disciples? Now, this is basically when Jesus dies on the cross. He is resurrected, and on the same day he meets the disciples. Now, we're going to get into this because there's 4 mentions of this. 3 of them, they make sense. They're in Jerusalem. On the same day he is resurrected, they are in Jerusalem. They all line up. But there's one here that they say that he's in Galilee where he meets them. That's anywhere but from 3 to 6 days walk away. So it can't be the same day. This seems like a contradiction, and we're going to get into it. My name is Craig. This is Morning Star Quest, where we're journeying through the Bible, one question at a time. And this is my friend Cosmo. How you going, Cosmo?
I'm doing great, Craig. This is such an interesting topic. So how do you want to dive into this question about the different accounts?
Well, see, the thing is, we have...
It's definitely a...
Oh, sorry, I keep cutting you off. So the question we have here for today is, well, we're going through 33. We're up to 33. We have 439 of these contradictions, and I'm going through one a week and discovering whether they are contradictions or not. So I'm up to 33. This atheist list, well, it is pretty detailed, but when you get into it, there is so much more, and they're not contradictions, but maybe today is, because it seems a bit far-fetched that people could be on the same day, get somewhere that at best 3 days.
It does sound challenging on the surface. Let's explore how this can be reconciled. Are you ready to dive in?
I am, and I'm hoping people out there are also wanting to find this out, because I find that this is such an interesting question that, well, I just love delving into this stuff. So let's do it. So, all right, let's start with, we've got the 3 that make sense. So basically, like I said, the day of resurrection, which is on the 3rd day, Jesus will rise from the dead, and he does. And this is on the morning, Mary and the other women, they go to the tomb, they speak to Jesus, and then they run off and say to all the disciples, this is crazy. He is risen. And of course, all the disciples are all hiding because they're frightened of the Romans. They're frightened of the Israelite. I can't remember the word. Can you give me the words, please?
Sanhedrin? Or perhaps the religious leaders?
Thank you. That's what I was trying to think of. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word. So there's a lot of, the disciples are very scared at the moment. So they're in hiding. Now, they're in hiding all around Jerusalem because that's where all of this happened. And it is very clear. I mean, they could have been at Bethany, which is like 2 miles away, which was a safe place, but it's only 2 miles away, so they could clearly get there easily. And also, they could have been in different places, like in this place where it's in the upper room. And that could be just somebody's house, and they're just in the upper room. They're hiding out. They are scared. And this is where Jesus appears to them. So the 11 disciples are in a room, and this is what happened. So they got up and they returned at once to Jerusalem. They found the 11 and those with them assembled together. Oh, sorry, they found the 11 and those with them assembled together, and saying, "Is it true? The Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon." Then the 2 told them what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke bread. While they were still talking about this, Jesus himself stood among them and said to them, peace be with you. They were startled and frightened, thinking they saw a ghost. So this is the setup. Now, in the upper room, it's the upper room, or am I getting confused with the meal before the Last Supper?
No, you're correct. The disciples were in the upper room, also known as the same place where they had the Last Supper. This is where Jesus appeared to them after his resurrection.
Right, so they were in the same room. Oh, how cool. Okay, all right, that's fine. So basically, Jesus appears to them on the same day. So this is the big question. What day or where did Jesus appear to them, as well as when? So the next question here, and then Mark kind of says the same thing. Later, Jesus appeared to the 11 as they were eating. Obviously, that's the eating place. He rebuked them for the lack of faith and their stubborn refusal. I got to do tongue twisters before I start these videos. To believe that those who had seen him after he had risen. So this is still the same day. Same day, still in Jerusalem. Everybody could easily get to this place. Simple. Let's jump to John. On the evening of that first day of the week, which is, I guess that would be the Sunday. So they were together with the doors locked. For the fear of the Jewish leaders, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." So obviously each one of these is coming from a different angle, but it's the same event. As you could probably tell, they are all scared, and it is the same day. You can't take that away, that it's the same day. It has to be the same day. However, then we get to Matthew. Then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. And with Matthew 28:16, is there more about talking about where Jesus appeared to them?
Yes. In Matthew 28:16, it mentions the disciples going to Galilee as Jesus had instructed them. This might not necessarily be on the same day, but rather an event that took place later. This is where the potential timeline difference comes into play.
And this is the problem. Where did Jesus first appear to the disciples after the resurrection? Now, the question here is, in Mark, Luke, and John, they are all stating very clearly that they first appeared in Jerusalem in this upper room. But then we get to Matthew, and it says he first appeared in Galilee. Now, Galilee from Jerusalem, I think you were telling me that it could take 2 to 3 days. However, this is through Samaria, so it's not probably the safest direction. So most likely it could be 5 to 6 days, like going up and around, so you kind of miss out Samaria. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. The journey from Jerusalem to Galilee could take around 5 to 6 days, especially avoiding Samaria. This difference in location and timing is why it seems like a contradiction on the surface.
And I can see why that the atheists have put this list together and put this one here. But I think when it says, then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go, I find it interesting that in the other two, it is more, the other three Gospels, it is saying more along the lines of all the disciples were absolutely scared, they're frightened, and Jesus comes in and says, "You have little faith," and says, "Hey, I am here, peace be with you." And obviously they're coming from different angles and everything, but really essentially they're scared, and Jesus comes in and calms the storm. Whereas it is very different with Matthew, isn't it? Because it's more of Jesus commissioning people, the disciples, to go out into the world. Is that right?
Yes, in Matthew, the focus is indeed more on the Great Commission. It's about Jesus instructing the disciples to spread his teachings. This event likely took place later, after the initial appearances in Jerusalem, which is why it seems distinct.
And I find it very interesting because in Matthew, it is talking about the commission. I think the whole point of this part is about commission. Is that right? Like talking about go out into the world?
Yes, exactly. The focus in Matthew's account is on Jesus commissioning the disciples to go out and make disciples of all nations.
So,
This emphasizes the broader...
so in the first, like in the three Gospels that we're saying that line up together, their whole point is to say the disciples were scared, they were frightened, and Jesus came in and calmed them and said, hey, I am actually alive. I have resurrected. It's been done. But he doesn't talk about the commission of, go out into the world, because I don't think they're even listening to that at the moment. So then they go to Galilee and Jesus appears to them the second time. But Matthew does not talk about the first one because it's not his point. His point is go out into the world. Am I just making that up, or is that what it is saying?
No, you're not making it up. Each gospel writer had a specific focus and audience in mind. Matthew emphasizes Jesus' authority and mission to the nations, while Mark, Luke, and John highlight the immediate appearances to the disciples in their fear. So you're spot on.
So really, this whole thing is, now what's the question here again? Let's get it right. Where did Jesus first appear to the 11 disciples after the resurrection? Well, Mark, Luke, and John talk about the first event, and that's the one in Jerusalem in the upper room. If we want to have the second time he appears to the 11 disciples, it's Matthew in Galilee, maybe a week later. So this is not a contradiction. It is a continuity of the story, complementary, call it what you will, but it is not a contradiction. So I am going through this whole contradiction list, 439, and you can see how these are contradictions, yet when you look at it, they're not. And I love this because it's more like a Bible study, and I wanted to get into even more. So click on there. We've got 439. That's like 8.5 years. Oh my goodness. But we're going to do it because it's a great Bible study, and I would love you to join. Join me. Go do something awesome for God, and I'll catch you in the next one.